Washington Journal continues.
And joining us now is Katie Bo Williams, a staff writer at The Hill. She's here to talk about the latest WikiLeaks revelations of the past few weeks and what some describe as the weaponization of WikiLeaks in campaign 2016. Good morning, Katie Bo.
Good morning, Kimberly.
So let's start about these leaks. Where exactly are they coming from?
So these are emails that have been allegedly stolen from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta's personal email account. And by most accounts, this is probably the work of Russian intelligence. That has not been confirmed yet. U.S. intelligence came out and was very clear in saying that the theft of the DNC emails was the work of the Russian government. They have not made a similar attribution here. Private security firms have come out and said, look, we've done a forensics analysis. This is very likely the same group. But we're still somewhat cautious in making that attribution.
Okay, and so what is WikiLeaks? Tell us a little bit about that, and why would they be interested in John Podesta's emails?
That's a great question. WikiLeaks is an anti-transparency platform. They believe in basically exposing power and corruption by producing unedited mass troves of documents. But it's an interesting organization because to talk about WikiLeaks is to talk about its founder, Julian Assange. Julian Assange is a guy who is currently holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy avoiding a rape charge. And he's a guy who has an axe to grind against Hillary Clinton. And he's gotten quite a bit of criticism for how he's managed leaks over the years. There's some suggestion amongst researchers that he is happy to sort of publish anything that either suits his own agenda or promotes his sort of stature in the world.
And who else has WikiLeaks targeted? What other have they been focused primarily on the Clinton campaign, or do they have other targets as well?
Throughout this cycle, we've seen them release these emails that were stolen from the Democratic National Committee as well. So one of the things that you have sort of heard critics of WikiLeaks say is this is somebody who is sort of explicitly targeting Democrats and the Clinton campaign. The DNC leaks were sort of also seen as damaging to Clinton, and so have these Podesta hacks largely.
Okay, we are talking with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill about the latest batch of WikiLeaks emails that were released over the past several weeks. Our viewers can join the discussion. Democrats 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, Independents 202-748-8002, as well as those supporting third parties can call 202-748-8003. Now let's take a look at some of the things that WikiLeaks has released. According to a Russian news organization, has sort of taken the best of some of the recent hacks. One of those involved her Wall Street speeches. According to RT America, a January 2016 email detailed how Clinton boasts of her, quote, great relationships with bankers. In a October 2013 speech, she spoke of how, quote, more thought has to be given to the process and transactions and regulations so that we don't kill or maim what works, but we concentrate on the most effective way of moving forward with the brain power and the financial power that exists here on Wall Street. Many of these emails involve some of these paid speeches that she's given to Wall Street groups, something that her opponents were calling for her to release. How big of an impact is this making?
Well, there's a couple of things to remember about the impact that these emails are having. The first one is that the content of these emails actually haven't been confirmed. The Clinton campaign has been very explicit that we're not going to comment on the authenticity of stolen material. So while these are sort of largely being treated as accurate, given that the Clinton campaign has not come out and said, no, nobody said this is false, that's sort of an important distinction to remember that anything that's sort of in these documents. With regards to the content about Wall Street that's in these emails, that was sort of one of the big early revelations from these documents, that there were partial transcripts from her speeches to Wall Street that obviously had been kind of a big issue in the primary. There's some strategists that are saying this maybe would have been more damaging to her had it come out in the primary, because it does appear to sort of portray her as a little bit cozy with Wall Street under some interpretations, and that's one of the big things that Sanders supporters were kind of hitting her on early on.
All right. David is calling in from Todd, North Carolina on our independent line. David, you are on with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill.
Katie, what kind of discussion is there on the Hill about using social media platforms to dictate to the representatives the United States citizens' desires? I mean, I've been trying to get this conversation to go for 4 years now, along with using debit cards to track immigration and make that a secure system. My name's Airhead Boone. Can you elaborate on that?
If you're talking about WikiLeaks as a social media platform, I'm not 100% sure that's an entirely accurate way of describing them. They are an operation that's run largely by a single guy. Julian Assange will say that he has sort of hundreds of employees or volunteers that are helping him disseminate these documents that they're publishing. But if you talk to former employees, it largely sounds like it's a one-man shop. Now, they do have a huge social media following with what I would say are pretty active supporters who spend a lot of time defending the integrity of the organization.
So let's talk politically about what these WikiLeaks revelations are having, the political impact. Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who is running for re-election, said this week that he told ABC News that Republicans are making a mistake by jumping on allegedly hacked emails released by WikiLeaks. And he said he himself won't talk about them, and he urged his Republicans to follow suit. He said, quote, "As our intelligence agencies have said, these leaks are an effort by a foreign government to interfere with our electoral process, and I will not indulge it," Rubio told ABC News. Further, "I want to warn my fellow Republicans who may want to capitalize politically on these leaks. Today it's the Democrats, tomorrow it could be us." How troublesome is it, potentially troublesome for those who are using these revelations?
Well, that was a big deal, Marco Rubio coming out and sort of effectively echoing the Clinton campaign line. And I think what you're seeing is kind of a hardening of Republican attitudes against WikiLeaks, because the biggest debate in Washington right now is, how do we talk about WikiLeaks? Do we talk about them like a journalistic outlet that is putting out content that's fair game to have in the political discussion? Or do we talk about them as a bullhorn for the Russian government and as as the work of a single guy who's got an axe to grind? So there's a lot of dispute about whether or not this is a true journalistic outlet, or whether or not this is an attempt by the Russian government to interfere in the U.S. election.
All right, Jean's calling in from Leander, Texas on our Republican line. Jean, you're on with Katie Bo Williams.
Yes, hi. I'm a little confused here. The Democrats seem to have gotten to this kind of a last refuge of the scoundrel defense, which is that the Russians are trying to influence our election by publishing these emails. But looking at what's in them, it sort of seems to me like their principal offense is basically exposing how the Democrats and the press are conspiring to steal it.
Well, there's a lot of concern, I think, from quite a few Republicans that the content of these emails themselves are not getting enough attention. I think you're seeing a couple of different things happen here. I think part of what's going on is, even though the content of these emails are being reported on, the Republican candidate himself hasn't really grabbed a hold of sort of the individual allegations in these emails and sort of raised them to the level of a campaign issue. There's also some question about what interfere in the election actually means. So when the U.S. intelligence community came out and said the DNC hack is an attempt to interfere in the U.S. election, they didn't offer any more details of that. They sort of left that open to interpretation. And that doesn't necessarily mean helping Donald Trump. It might just mean sowing disunity, sowing uncertainty, sowing discord in the electoral process.
Okay, let's take a look at what Hillary Clinton herself said about the WikiLeaks email dumps during this past Wednesday's presidential debate.
You are very clearly quoting from WikiLeaks, and what's really important about WikiLeaks is that the Russian government has engaged in espionage against Americans. They have hacked American websites, American accounts of private people, of institutions. Then they have given that information to WikiLeaks for the purpose of putting it on the internet. This has come from the highest levels of the Russian government, clearly from Putin himself, in an effort, as 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed, to influence our election. So I actually think the most important question of this evening, Chris, is finally, will Donald Trump admit and condemn that the Russians are doing this and make it clear that he will not have the help of Putin in this election, that he rejects Russian espionage against Americans, which he actually encouraged in the past. Those are the questions we need answered. We've never had anything like this happen in any of our elections before.
She put the focus clearly on Russia and the fact that this was outside, an outsider influencing, trying to influence the election. But John Podesta and others in our campaign have sort of had uneven responses to it, sort of responding to some, but at the same time not saying that they're not confirming that they're real. Talk a little bit about the Clinton campaign's response to all of this.
Well, one thing that you've started to see the Clinton campaign do is try to explicitly tie Donald Trump to WikiLeaks. They've started sort of floating the suggestion that Trump somehow has a direct connection to WikiLeaks. The evidence is not, the hard evidence isn't really there for that yet. That seems to largely be based off of claims by this longtime Trump confidant Roger Stone that he has a quote-unquote back channel connection to Julian Assange. Now, what that looks like, who knows? And he said that he hasn't gotten any information about these dumps beforehand, but that's certainly the narrative that the Clinton campaign is pushing right now.
Okay, Bill is calling in from Los Lumis, New Mexico on our Democratic line. Bill, you're on with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill.
Good morning, ladies. Listen up, viewers. Listen up, listeners. There's an old saying, if you want to hide something, hide it in plain sight. Hillary's emails, Hillary's personal server were not hacked. She did something right. Hacked emails are contaminated information. They will not hold muster in any court in any day. Thank you.
So how reliable is this information that we get from this WikiLeaks hack or any sort of hacks in
Yeah, that's a great question. We don't know that this information is authentic. My personal suspicion is that because the Clinton campaign has not come out and explicitly denied the content of these emails, they're probably accurate. But security researchers have repeatedly warned that given that these emails were most likely stolen by the Russian government and provided to WikiLeaks to publish, to have some sort of influence on public opinion, there could be emails in there that have been edited or doctored in some way. I don't think we've seen that yet, but that's not to say that emails that are coming out in later dumps, are going to be completely accurate.
The New York Times has an opinion piece today related to the WikiLeaks release and says that it's a lesson for Secretary Clinton. It says that Mrs. Clinton will only stir up her Republican critics by appearing secretive. She has a much better chance of shutting them down, as she did in her Benghazi hearing, with a dogged determination to show she has nothing to hide. It goes on to say, imagine if months ago Mrs. Clinton had done her own giant information release, including hundreds of pages of speeches to Goldman Sachs and Citibank, and other organizations. Journalists and the public would have waded through them, discussed them, written about them, and by now everyone would have long since moved on. Talk a little bit about that, the idea that Clinton has this reputation of being secretive and whether the campaign went about that the wrong way.
Well, this kind of drip, drip, drip of minor revelations that are coming from these emails is certainly damaging to Mrs. Clinton. She's obviously struggled with this sort of perception that she's untrustworthy, and the the slow and continual release of documents that have been stolen, giving them sort of the perception that they were something that was hidden, I think has sort of played into that narrative.
All right, Tommy's calling in from New York City on our Republican line. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning. How are you?
I
understand there's a lot of bad things coming out on WikiLeaks, but I don't go by that. I go by, I know I'm following her for a long time. As long as I've heard or known, she always says, "Oh, we're the Rodham Clintons. We're from Illinois." Now, a few months I put on the TV, and I hear her making a speech for coal miners and this and that. She wanted their vote. All of a sudden, now, 25 years later, she's from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I heard her say it with her own mouth. My point is, she will do and say anything to get what she wants or to get a vote. That's proof of lying, not WikiLeaks and other things. She'll do and say anything to get what she wants, and that's why I don't trust her.
All right, Tommy, let's let Katie Bo Williams respond to you.
Well, perhaps one of the most damaging emails that has come out of this release was the excerpt from one of the transcripts of her Wall Street speeches, in which she talks about the need for a public and a private position in policymaking. That has certainly been probably the single expression from these emails that has kind of gained the most traction, perhaps because it does play into some concerns that critics have of Mrs. Clinton, that she is not trustworthy.
All right. One of the emails that were released appear to show a private email account of current President Barack Obama. It says in the Obama emails, according to RT America, emails from an account possibly used by Barack Obama before winning the election in 2008 were revealed on Thursday. These were emails to John Podesta. One that said was from John Podesta to Obama, which said, "On the chance that President Bush could raise this with you tonight, I wanted you to be aware that it is the unanimous recommendation for your advisor that you not attend discussing a G20 meeting that was taking place after the election, but before Barack Obama was installed." The email address that he used was also released. Talk a little bit about that. What sort of information does it appear that these releases are trying to divulge, or is it mostly just to embarrass people?
Well, I mean, so like with that particular email, I think the nugget of information in there that kind of generated a little bit of interest was the fact that that was an email address that hadn't formally known to be associated with the president. But the thing about WikiLeaks that has sort of characterized their releases of documents sort of since the beginning of this campaign is they keep promising to deliver the death knell for the Clinton campaign, but they've largely overpromised and underdelivered. While there's been revelations in here that have been seen as embarrassing for Mrs. Clinton, there hasn't been anything that's yet amounted to a true October surprise. Now, who knows what's going to come out in this sprint leading into November 8th, but that's been the narrative so far.
Just over 2 weeks left, so that's going to be my next question. Could more be coming?
There's absolutely more coming if Julian Assange is to be believed. There are still thousands of emails from Mr. Podesta's account still to be released, so we'll see what's in them.
All right, Arma is calling in from Hawthorne, California on our Democratic line. You are on with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill.
A few months ago, Trump on a campaign, I don't know what he was doing there, but anyway, he had a campaign. And he said, "Russia, if you're listening, please get me those emails." And then a few months later, Hillary Clinton's emails. And then a few months later, they were there. And then he claims that he doesn't know anything about, is it Russia or what? He said this in public. Nobody mentions this, but he actually asked them to get Hillary Clinton's emails that were missing, and they did.
All right, Arma, let's let Katie Bo Williams respond to that. Now, these aren't the emails that she deleted.
Those are not the emails that she deleted. Those are actually being released right now through a FOIA request. The FBI recovered about 15,000 emails that Clinton deleted when her lawyers purged the personal emails from the work-related ones before she turned the work-related ones over to the State Department. FBI recovered about 15,000 that they said were work-related that had been deleted. The State Department is releasing those. They actually just made the second release yesterday. They're largely duplicates. They've so far been documents that were already released through other FOIA requests, perhaps an email that was an identical email chain that had been forwarded with the line "please print" at the top of it. That's the kind of thing that's coming out of these dumps.
Okay, Virginia is calling in from Huntsville, Alabama, on our Democratic line. Good morning, Virginia.
Good morning.
Hi, Virginia.
I just would like to ask a question. I would like to make a comment first, and I would like to ask a question because I am a retired civil servant that worked in the top secret capacity. For these emails to be released and for the media to take a hold of them and publish them and talk about them like you're doing, to me, it is a hindrance to our government. You know, in order to destroy a government, you must destroy it from within. And we have no emails from the Republican Party. We know nothing about what they are doing. And when we get down to the very gist of this, you're going to find out that this was also done from within and dealing with Hillary Clinton. Now, I don't agree with everything that she does and she says, but then for Donald Trump, and I agree with the other caller when he made the announcement to hack into her email. Now, you know, this is espionage as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Virginia, let's give Katie Bo Williams a chance to respond to you.
Well, a lot of people do see this as espionage, including the Clinton campaign. Given the fact that these emails were most likely stolen by the Russian government and then provided to WikiLeaks to publish, there's a great deal of concern in the security research community that foreign intelligence agencies are now using the platform of WikiLeaks effectively as a weapon to try to somehow influence public opinion and have an impact on the results of the election.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, a New Jersey judge, wrote a piece for Fox News exploring the question as to whether the media can reveal things that are disclosed in these WikiLeaks dumps. He says, can the government hold the press liable criminally or civilly for the publication of known stolen materials that the public wants to know about? In a word, no. He goes on to say, this material is in the public interest, and said, in a free society, one in which we do not need a government permission slip to exercise our natural rights, all people enjoy the right to know if the government is spying on us in violation of the constitutionally protected and natural right to privacy. We also have the right to know about the financial shenanigans or uprightness and honesty or dishonesty of those who seek the highest office in the land. What conversation did you have at the Hill in how to cover these things and whether it was okay to write or talk about them?
Well, they're in the public eye and they've been released. So we've been pretty aggressive in covering both the content of these emails, of course, making clear that they were stolen and have not been authenticated, as well as sort of the larger geopolitical conversation surrounding whether or not this is an attempt by the Russian government to influence the election. But one of the really interesting things about WikiLeaks that you're hearing from quite a few of the research critics of the organization is that they don't do what journalists do when they're provided sort of a mass data dump. What some of my sources in the security research community are telling me is that genuine whistleblowers are not going to WikiLeaks. They're going to The Guardian, or they're going to the organization that put out the Panama Papers, because journalists have a process by which they remove personally identifiable information that isn't of the public interest, and they also vet it for accuracy. WikiLeaks has a very dump it all approach. Anything that they get, they're going to stick out there. They don't pull personal information for people that might be vulnerable and have no public interest. And they've received a lot of criticism for that. There's also some big questions about how they fact check their information. They're not very transparent about what their process is for ensuring that these documents are authentic and haven't been tampered with. They say they have a 100% strike rate, but there's really no way to know.
Okay, John is calling from Southampton, Pennsylvania on our Republican line. John, you are on with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill.
Good morning. I want to address this allegation that the Russians are behind it, and Trump is a dupe of the Russians, and whatever. Interestingly enough, you may be aware, you had as a guest about a year ago the author of Clinton Cash, simply that, Clinton Cash. And it was really an explosive book that had all kinds of revelations. And it was reviewed by the Washington Post and the New York Times. And you can Google it, specifically Uranium One, Clinton Cash, New York Times. And it's a fascinating story. But I read the book almost immediately. And the Uranium One story, which is just one little segment in the book, is extraordinary. Bill Clinton took his good pal on his private jet. His friend flew him to Kazakhstan. Bill met with the dictator, had a big feast. The next day, Bill took his good friend, billionaire to meet the dictator. There was a competition for uranium rights in Kazakhstan, which all the major companies in the world were fighting for.
Well, John, do you have a question for Katie Bo Williams?
A week later, he was given the contract. Ultimately, what happened is the Russians acquired the company, and the Clinton Foundation got $140 million of campaign contributions. The foundation got $140 million of contributions to the Clinton Foundation.
All right, I want to give Katie Bo a chance to respond to that.
Well, there are certainly concerns from the Republican side of the field that let me rephrase that. There are certainly sort of hopes, I think, amongst some of Clinton's critics that there will be something in these WikiLeaks emails that will, effectively be the thing that is able to bring Clinton down somewhere between now and November 8th. But, the question is, will that revelation be in there, and what impact will it have in the next couple of weeks?
Well, let's take a look at what Republican candidate Donald Trump himself said about the impact of these WikiLeaks revelations on the Clinton campaign on Thursday during a campaign rally.
Hillary Clinton has raised countless millions of dollars from big donors who want to ship our jobs to other countries. You know that. You saw that last night. Remember when I said open border, and she open border, I don't want open border, but she turned out she wanted open borders. Boy, that WikiLeaks has done a job on her, hasn't it? And you take a look, she really has a hatred almost for Catholics. She's got a hatred for evangelicals. I mean, what they said about Catholics and evangelicals and so many other things. So many other things. And actually, the one I liked was John Podesta saying that, who's her campaign chairman, saying that Hillary Clinton has bad instincts. She's got bad instincts. I don't want somebody with bad instincts as our president. I'll tell you, if I were Hillary, I'd fire that guy. He's saying so many bad things.
How big of an impact is this having on at least Donald Trump's attacks on Hillary Clinton?
Well, we've started to see him grab a hold of the revelations in some of the specific emails, but there's some strategists that are concerned that he really kind of missed his opportunity with a lot of the content of these emails to grab a hold of some of the earlier ones that came out of Wall Street that had some really clear, defined talking points that were easy to understand. He took a while to really start honing in on single emails. He would sort of mention them obliquely on the stump, but not really drill down on them.
And some of them, some of the emails did have some things he could have taken a hold of. For example, the claim that of pay to play during her tenure at the State Department. Again, RT America says that one email from Clinton aide Huma Abedin to Robbie Mook and John Podesta in January 2015 details how Moroccan authorities donated to the Clinton Foundation's Clinton Global Initiative to get access to Clinton. Abedin says, quote, King has personally committed approximately $12 million, both for the endowment and to support the meeting, end quote, and that, quote, the condition upon which the Moroccans agreed to host the meeting was her participation. If Hillary Rodham Clinton was not a part of it, meaning was a non-starter. How problematic is things like this and allegations of pay to play?
Well, that's pay to play allegations are certainly one of the biggest things or one of the biggest criticisms that she has faced from Trump and from other Republican critics. And that 2015 email, which was sent shortly after she'd announced her candidacy for president, not when she was Secretary of State, certainly could be interpreted as playing into those criticisms.
All right, Robert's calling in from Lake Elsmore, California, on our independent line. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. My concern is, has Hillary explained the missing...
Robert, can you turn down your TV volume and listen through the phone, please?
Okay, I will. Sorry.
That's all right. Okay, go ahead with your question, Robert.
Yes. Has she explained the deleting of emails or even the destructions of cell phones to the public?
Well, one thing that I would note is that when we talk about these emails that are coming out of WikiLeaks, we're talking about emails that were taken from the personal account of her campaign manager, not the emails, not emails that were sent through her personal server that were the subject of an investigation by the FBI.
And so what implications do you think these WikiLeaks dumps are going to have in future campaigns and in the political world more generally?
Well, I think that's what you're seeing with these comments that came out of Mr. Rubio this week. I think you're starting to see this sort of hardening of attitudes, not just on the Democratic side, but on the Republican side. This sort of growing concern that there might be long-term political consequences to supporting what is believed to be an attempt by the Russian government to interfere in a U.S. election.
All right, Don's calling in from Sumter, South Carolina on our Democratic line. Good morning, Don. You're on with Katie Bo Williams of The Hill.
Good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, Miss Williams. WikiLeaks kind of supports the butterfly effect. Snowden, who is currently being sheltered in Russia, had no idea that when he ratted out the NSA, maybe rightfully so, what effects that would have. It gave credibility to WikiLeaks and fame. And now there's no way he could have realized that Assange would become Putin's puppet and start, spewing out information that Russia was giving to WikiLeaks. And it seems to me that a lot of Republicans are sort of living in denial. When you hook it all together, it's pretty obvious. Putin has got his doctorate in Soviet propaganda, and he's great at it, and he's applying that. And it sort of makes a lot of Republicans become, I hate to say this, Russian collaborators.
Well, Don, let's let Katie Bo Williams respond to that.
Well, there is this big concern amongst the security research community that because Julian Assange will sort of publish anything that anybody gives him, that there's this real opportunity for foreign intelligence agencies that want to shape public perception, that want to get a message out there without necessarily having their fingerprints on it, are going to be able to use that platform as a bullhorn or as a tool. Now, to go back to the Snowden stuff, Edward Snowden himself has actually been fairly complimentary of WikiLeaks. He has raised some concerns about their kind of dump it all attitude, what he's called their sort of opposition to even modest curation of leaks. Now, Snowden himself obviously went to The Guardian, so he did go to journalists that sort of picked through and found a way to produce those documents in a way that was both of the public interest but also protected vulnerable individuals.
Now, in our last segment, we talked a little bit about a cyber attacks that happened yesterday and were, according to WikiLeaks, were by WikiLeaks supporters in response to Julian Assange's internet being cut off at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The Chicago Tribune editorial board praised that move to cut off the internet. It said Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks kingpin holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, can reboot his laptop all he wants, but he'll still get one of those infuriating no connection to the internet message flashing across the screen. Why? Ecuador officials apparently feared they were being played as chumps in the purported WikiLeaks/Russian effort to meddle in the U.S. election. Did the United States have any role in Julian Assange losing his internet access?
They're saying no. There's a lot of speculation that there was some sort of back-channel pressure there, but the State Department has said that neither it nor intelligence officials were involved in pushing for that.
Okay. Mike is calling in from Richmond, Virginia on our Republican line. Good morning, Mike.
Yes, good morning. I just want to address something one of the earlier callers asserted to the effect that Donald Trump asked Russia to do further hacks. And I don't know how you get that out of that exchange that went on between Trump and the press, because what had happened, this was right after the Democrats had figured out that the DNC had been hacked by somebody in the Soviet Union. Well, I should say in Russia. I'm sorry. I guess I'm living in the past a little bit there. Trump, at the same time, there was all this issue about where the missing emails were, the 30,000 missing emails, and Trump made an off-the-cuff sarcastic remark that maybe the Russians could find them. And an awful lot of people on the left took this sarcastic remark, and I don't know how you miss that that's what it was, as some kind of an invitation to the Russians to continue hacking. To me, this is really absurd, and it shows a lot of paranoia, I think, on the part of the Democrats. Democrats are really, really worried that Trump can win this election. And I think...
Mike, let's let Katie Bell Williams respond.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of controversy about those comments when they came out. Obviously, the Trump campaign said, look, he was just joking. He was being sarcastic. He was talking off the cuff, as you say. And the Democrats said, no, this is an explicit invitation to a foreign power to hack the United States. The way that you're still seeing this play out is the Clinton campaign is sort of suggesting that there is this direct connection in between Donald Trump and Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So you're still seeing that those comments kind of have legs.
Another public official, Congressman Jeff Duncan, also responding to this in a tweet saying, let me be clear, thank God for WikiLeaks doing the job that the mainstream media won't. Hashtag Assange and WikiLeaks. How are people, lawmakers, responding to this? And is there any backlash to folks who rely on this information?
I think there's a real split right now in terms of how to approach these leaks, both from the left and the right. I mean, obviously, the Clinton campaign has said we shouldn't talk about these. You've had Jill Stein use the content of the emails to hit Clinton for not being progressive enough as recently as yesterday. On the Republican side, there's also this split. You've got Jeff Duncan saying they're doing the job that the mainstream media won't. He's sort of kind of playing on these sort of widespread concerns amongst some Americans, and particularly amongst some Republicans, that the media is biased, is somehow colluding with the Clinton campaign. But then you have Rubio saying no, like we shouldn't talk about these. We should be next, and he's seen as kind of a leading light in conservative foreign policy thinking. So there's really a big split here in terms of how lawmakers are handling these.
Okay. Connie's calling in from Highland, California on our independent line. Good morning, Connie.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. And I just want to say, Trump won his to be the running person because the other opponents that he was running against were all afraid to say what he opened the doors to. A lot of people are so fed up with what's going on in our country, with everything. And also, I want to know how can't they know where WikiLeaks are coming from? Doesn't it say where they're being published from or whatever? And also, I want to say about Trump also that all these persons and women that have come up before, it's before he was running for president.
All right, Connie, that's a lot to unpack. Let's let Katie Bowe-Williams respond.
Well, in terms of where these leaks are being published, that's kind of the big question now, because obviously Julian Assange no longer has connection to the internet. He's claimed, as I mentioned, hundreds of volunteers. It's unclear who they are, where they're actually publishing these from.
Dan's calling from Independence, Oregon on our Democratic line. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. My question is about journalism. I always thought that journalism was supposed to be reporting the truth. And I know these WikiLeaks things have not been confirmed or anything, but here we are putting them out there as if they're the truth. Thank you very much. Bye.
Go ahead. What's your response to that?
Well, I think certainly at the Hill we've been pretty careful to make sure that we're identifying the fact that these emails haven't been confirmed, but that they are that they're now out in the public eye and are having an impact on the political discourse.
All right, Donna is calling in from Painesville, Ohio, on our Republican line. Donna, you're on with Katie Bowe-Williams of the Hill.
Good morning, ladies. Thank you for taking my call. This Hill, the paper you work for, do you write things about both parties, or you lean more towards the Democrats than the Republicans?
I'd say we strive to be as middle of the road as is absolutely possible.
Okay, Katie Bowe-Williams, staff writer at The Hill. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Kimberly.
And coming up next, we'll be talking election reform with a founding member of the 90s band Nirvana. Chris Novoselic will be here to talk about his group Fair Vote and election reform. We'll be right back.